Welcome to the last part of this three-part series on grammatical structures you need for your C1 exam. In the previous videos, you have learned 6 essential and key grammatical structures that will make a difference in your speaking exams. And today we're gonna wrap things up with the last 2 grammatical structures you need for your oral exam. What? Oh, you didn't watch the other 2 videos? Well, then I'll wait for you. Go and check them out. And then when you're ready, come back here. And as promised, I told you that by the end of this video, the grammar ebook would be ready and available. So if you signed up for the mailing list, you will receive all the information by email. And if you haven't signed up to that mailing list, do it now so that you can receive all the details and all this information about the ebook I mentioned in the other videos. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just stay till the end and then I'll explain everything. By the way, my name is Monica, I'm an EOI teacher, and let's begin finding out about the final 2 grammatical structures every C1 student needs. Let's go. Alright, so here we are with the last 2 grammatical structures that you need for your C1 exams. So, of course, I couldn't forget about the importance of verb tenses. Now, sometimes we fall into the trap of using the same verb tenses because we don't feel confident, we don't feel sure, and we just simply want to play it safe. But using a variety of verb tenses shows the examiners that we have a good level, a good command of English. And not only that, but our ideas are understood better because the time frames are more organized and easy to follow. So, of course, there's so many verb tenses to choose from, but as a little summary, you can see that the simple present, of course, is used for things that happen regularly and habitually. And in contrast, the past simple happens with completed actions or completed, things that happened in the past. The present perfect always shows a link between the present and the past, and also the past perfect expresses or shows the order of what past action happened earlier. With the simple future, we normally use it for predictions or for promises. And the future continues, describes things that are in progress, in the future. The future perfect indicates actions that will be completed before a certain point in the future. And the future perfect continues emphasizes the duration of an action up to a future moment. Now, this is a bit complex to understand without examples. So here I have prepared a list, a summary chart with the different verb tenses in English, with the formation of each tense and also when are they used, followed by an example. So feel free to take a screenshot and study it at home later on. This is the second part. This is the second round of verb tenses. So please do the same. Have a look at the formation, the examples, and whenever they are used. Now, imagine you are doing a monologue about the environment, okay? It's a good way to express, with any topic really, but this is an example of how you can combine different verb tenses when doing your monologues, okay? So, over the past decade, we have seen significant changes in our environment due to climate change. Many communities have already experienced the devastating effects of extreme weather events, such as hurricanes and wildfires. Before these changes became so evident, scientists had warned us about the potential consequences of our actions, but their advice was often ignored. Looking ahead, I believe that we will make greater efforts to protect our planet. Governments and organizations around the world will implement stricter regulations to reduce carbon emissions and promote sustainable practices. In the near future, more individuals will be adopting eco-friendly habits, such as using renewable energy sources and reducing plastic waste. By 2050, I envision a world where green technology will have transformed our cities and we will be living in harmony with nature, prioritizing the health of our planet and above all else. So as you can see, this is a little summary of some things that you can say in your monologues with a nice variety of different verb tenses. You have present perfect continuous, past perfect, future simple, etc. So it always gives a good impression when your verb tenses are there and you have a good command and use of them. Well, and now it's time for the final grammatical structure you need for your C1, and this is reported speech. Basically, reported speech is when we have to report someone else's words and we are not using the exact words that this person said. Okay, so basically we have to change a little bit what that person said. We never use quotation marks in this case, and we have to, tell someone what someone else said. For example, if someone says, do you like pizza? If I need to reproduce and replicate those words for someone else, I'm gonna say, well, he asked if I like pizza. Now, if someone says, I am going to the store, then I need to say, she said that she was going to the store, if I want to tell someone else what the other person said. So basically, there is a little bit of a transformation whenever we do reported speech. Now, let's have a look at this presentation together to see how it really works. Right, so this is what we're going to cover in this presentation. We're going to learn what is reported speech, of course. Now, the difference between say and tell, because these are very key verbs whenever we have to do reported speech. Then, how to report statements or affirmative sentences. What are the expressions that combine with the verbs say and tell? How do we change the verb tenses? How do we change modal verbs as well? How do we change pronouns and determiners? And how do we change time and places too? And finally, how do we report questions and also commands, because they behave different to statements, for example. So let's begin with what this teacher says to the class. This person is going to say, I'm very happy with your results in the exam. Now you have two possibilities. If you have the direct speech, you're going to reproduce the exact words and you're going to say, I'm very happy with the results in the exam. Or if you have to report those words to someone else, you're going to say, he said to the class that he was very happy with the results in the exam. As you can see, you had to do a few changes in order, to report someone else's words. Main information. Whenever we use direct speech, we use the exact words a person said and they go between quotation marks. In reported speech, however, we don't use the exact words, but we have to change a few things, and we just omit the quotation marks and we use the word that as an optional way. So for example, if someone says, it's a nice day, I'm going to report it by saying, Tom said that, if I want to, it was a nice day. Now, let's move on to say or tell, because they behave differently. And I must say, this is the most challenging thing when it comes to reported speech with my students, that we confuse them both. Future reference. Say always goes with or without a personal object. But when you have the personal object, you must use the preposition to, always. So you can say, he said that it was okay, right? When someone says just simply a message, he said that it was okay. But if you have the object, if you have a person, you must say, he said to me, that he was okay. So you need to use the preposition to and the person, right? However, if you have tell, you never have the object. You never have the personal object and you don't need to use to. So basically you can say, he told me that he was okay. So no preposition to. You just simply use tell followed by a personal object with no preposition. Now let's talk about the expressions that combine with either say or tell. For example, in English, if you want to say, you use the verb say. So say good morning, venga, say good afternoon, okay? But we don't say tell good morning or tell good afternoon. Decir algo o decir nada o no decir nada, we use the verb to say. Say something, di algo. Don't say anything, no digas nada, ¿vale? They combine with the verb say. Also, to say your prayers, you don't tell a prayer, you say a prayer. To say so, ¿vale? Lo típico de, bueno, si tú lo dices, ¿vale? If you say so, all right? We don't say if you tell so, but the correct verb is to say. And also to say a few words. Venga, unas palabras, say a few words, right? But we don't use the verb to tell. And then with tell, we use to tell the truth, to tell a lie, to tell a secret, to tell a story, to tell the time, to tell the difference, notar la diferencia, to tell a difference, to tell someone's name, to tell someone the way, or to tell your future. Your future, sorry, your fortune, yeah, de predecir el futuro, yeah, to tell your fortune. So these are some expressions that combine with the verb tell. Now, as I said before, some of the transformations that we need to do when it comes to reported speech is to change the verb tenses. So here on the screen you have the equivalents, yeah, or the changes that you must follow in order to do reported speech successfully. So for example, if you have the present simple, that becomes the past simple. So instead of saying Sam doesn't play hockey very often, someone would say Anna said that Sam didn't play hockey very often. Yeah. So the present continuous becomes the past continuous, the perfect simple becomes the past perfect simple, and so on and so forth. All right. So as you can see, you can take a screenshot of this chart so that you know exactly how to change the verb tenses. What happens when something is still true, when you are reporting someone's words and they are true, yeah, they don't change? So obviously we don't have to change the tense here. For example, the article said that fishing is the most popular sport in the UK. If that is still true, we don't need to change the verb tense of the present simple, and you can leave it as it is. The word that is normally optional, but when you have the verbs such as reply or shout, we need to use it. So I replied that going swimming was a ridiculous idea. Or she shouted that I was a killer. Yeah, you must leave the word that in those cases. Now let's move on to modal verbs because they suffer changes too. So of course, if you have the modal verbs will or shall, they become would. If you have can, it becomes could. Must can be must, had to, and should. In a few minutes, we're gonna see which ones are those cases. If you have to, that becomes the past. Mustn't and shouldn't, we're gonna see it in a bit. And may becomes might. So for example, if someone says, oh, it may rain tomorrow, you're gonna report those words by saying, she said that it might rain the next day. Okay, so as you can see, the modal verb has changed. Let's continue with when do we use must, should, etc. with the modal verb must. Okay, when we use must as obligation, yeah, must can only be changed to had to or should. For example, you must do what the referee tells you. Okay, this is an obligation. Then that means that you can only transform must into had to or should. For example, the coach said that we had to or that we should do what the referee told us, okay, because it's an obligation. Now, when mustn't is an obligation, then we can use mustn't or shouldn't, okay? So as you can see, here is a little bit different because it's in the negative. So for example, you mustn't cheat under any circumstances. Now, mustn't is an obligation, yeah? So in the reported speech, you're gonna say, we were told that we mustn't or that we shouldn't cheat under any circumstances. When must is used as probability, then we don't change it to had to, or should. We just simply leave it as must. For example, it must have felt wonderful when they won, said Dave. This is a probability. Yeah, I'm thinking about it's quite probable, but that this person felt that way. Then you say, Dave said that it must have felt wonderful when they won, because must is used as probability. And now when you have pronouns, of course, or determiners, they need to change as well. Here is a summary of all these changes. Again, you can take a screenshot and have a look at how they behave. But for example, if you say, it's my turn, and these are your exact words, you're going to change that by saying, well, Eddie pointed out that it was his turn, or her, depending if it's a man or a woman, of course. Now, also determinants change too. So this and that plus a noun becomes the or that. For example, I bought this fishing rod yesterday. Linda said that she had bought the fishing rod the day before. So you are changing this, yeah, in this case, yeah. As you can see, you have here a list of examples of these specific changes. So please take a look, take a screenshot, and study at home, you know, spending more time. Okay, so there's no need for me to go through all of them. I would suggest you taking a screenshot and have a look later at all these possible changes with determiners. Okay, and one more thing we must change with reported speech is the time and place references. So for example, whenever you use the word here, that becomes there. Tomorrow is the following or the next day. Tonight becomes that night. And yesterday becomes the day before or the previous day. Now becomes then, whatever, next week, next year becomes the following or the next whatever, year, day, second, etc. And the same happens with last week, last year becomes the week before or the previous week, year, day, etc. And finally, the word ago becomes before or earlier. Okay, you have the two possibilities. If the questions have a yes and no answer, yeah, so for example, questions that begin with have or do or be or modal verbs, yeah, we make the same changes as usual, but we don't use the question form or the question marks, okay? We omit that and we introduce the word if or whether. For example, do you want to play Monopoly? Yeah. To report that, we would say, Anne asked if or whether we wanted to play Monopoly. So here two changes. We are using if or whether to introduce the question, but we are not following the typical question structure in English. Do you want to play? So we omit the auxiliary and we just simply keep the sentence as if it was a statement. Now, what happens with the WH question? So a question beginning with what, when, where, why. Okay, for example, what do you want to know? Yeah, to report that question, we are going to say, she asked me what I wanted to know. So I'm going to repeat the same WH word, yeah, and I'm going to not follow the question structure typical for questions, yes? And now sometimes we have requests or we have commands or suggestions in English, okay? Here on the screen you have a few examples, yeah? And depending if they are commands or requests or suggestions, we follow a different pattern. For example, what happens when we have to report a command? This is the structure we're gonna follow. We're going to use the verb order or tell, then somebody, and then to an infinitive. For example, put the gun down, yeah? The typical phrase from a thriller movie, put the gun down, yeah? To report that command, we're going to say, he ordered him to put the gun down. So I'm following the same structure. The verb order, the person, and the infinitive with to. Now, if you have a command in the negative, don't look down, you're going to say, he told us not to look down. So we have the verb tell, then we have the person us, and then the infinitive to, but because it's negative, we are using not in front, not to look down. When we have requests, we need to use the verb ask or beg plus somebody plus to infinitive. For example, help me please. This is a request. So I'm going to report it and say, Jean asked John to help her. Okay? So ask the verb, the person, John, and then the infinitive with to. If you have a negative request, don't call the police. You can say he begged Colin not to call the police. And finally, if you have suggestions, you're going to use suggest plus ing, and then that, somebody, should, and then the bare infinitive. For example, let's go outside. This is a suggestion. Okay, I can say, I suggested going outside with ing, going outside, or I suggested that we should go outside. I'm thrilled to announce that the ebook is finally ready. So what you're going to find in this ebook is the following. First, you will find an explanation of all the 8 grammatical structures we covered in this series of videos, with the explanation of how is it used, what is it for, the formation, the structure, etc. Plus, it will come with several examples for your speaking exams. And to me, this is the most valuable part of the ebook. I will provide you with many different examples for your different monologue exams and your dialogue exams about different topics: environment, work, education, technology, social media, the typical exams that you face in your speaking tests. And in addition, you will find different exercises to practice all the grammatical points, with also some interactive games as well. So if you are interested in getting and having a look at this ebook, please sign up for the mailing list below and you will receive all the details by email. Thank you so much. Please keep up the good work and let me know if you found these videos helpful. Best of luck. See you soon and take care.